Your life at every level of net worth. Most people think the difference between broke and wealthy is just a number. A bigger paycheck, a better apartment, a few more zeros sitting in a savings account that you check every morning with a quiet kind of dread. They think it's linear, that life gets proportionally better with every dollar you add, like turning up the volume on a speaker. They are completely wrong. The difference between each level of net worth isn't just financial. It's psychological. It rewires how you think about time, about other people, about risk, about what you deserve, about what's even possible. The person worth $50,000 doesn't just have more money than the person worth zero. They live in a fundamentally different reality, different relationships, different problems, different fears, different freedoms. And by the time you reach the levels where most people stop being able to imagine the numbers, money has stopped being about money entirely. This is your life at every level of net worth, not the fantasy version, not the Instagram version. The actual version, with all the anxiety, the strange new problems, the things nobody tells you, and the realizations that hit you at 2 in the morning when the number in your account has changed, but something inside you still hasn't. If you've never seen a breakdown like this before, subscribe right now and hit the bell. We cover the hidden mechanics of money, status, and psychology that schools don't teach and the wealthy don't advertise. Like this video. It genuinely helps more people find this content. Now let's get into it. Level 1. Negative net worth. Somewhere between minus $30,000 and zero. You're 26 years old and your net worth is negative $23,400. Not zero, negative. You know this because you sat down one Sunday afternoon with a notebook, a calculator, and the specific kind of courage it takes to actually look at the full picture of your financial life. You added up your student loans, your credit card balance that's been quietly growing for 2 years, the money you owe your cousin that you both pretend isn't a real debt, and the $1,200 remaining on a laptop financing plan you took out because you needed it for work. Then you subtracted everything you actually own. The used Honda with 94,000 miles on it. The furniture. The checking account with $340 in it. The result was a number preceded by a minus sign, and you stared at it for a long time. Here's what living at negative net worth actually feels like. Every financial decision is made from a position of defense, not offense. You're not trying to build anything. You're trying to stop the bleeding. You calculate whether you can afford groceries not by checking your balance, but by mentally mapping out every charge that's coming out before your next paycheck and figuring out what's left in the gap. You have a job. Actually, you have a pretty decent job for someone your age. You make $48,000 a year, which sounded like a lot when you were 19 and imagined your future. Now you understand that after taxes, rent, minimum payments on 3 different debts, car insurance, utilities, and the various small subscriptions you keep meaning to cancel, you have approximately $180 left over at the end of each month to cover groceries, gas, unexpected expenses, any social life, and every other cost of being a human being. Some months you make it. Some months you don't. And the credit card absorbs the difference, and the balance creeps up, and the minimum payment gets slightly larger, and the trap tightens by another quarter inch. The thing nobody explains about negative net worth is how much mental bandwidth it consumes. Every hour of every day, there is a background process running in your brain doing low-level financial threat assessment. Can I make it to Friday? What if the car needs something? What if I get sick and miss a day? What happens if the landlord raises the rent in March? It's not panic. It's something quieter and more exhausting than panic. It's constant vigilance that never turns off, not even when you're trying to sleep, not even when you're at a party pretending everything is fine. You are not lazy. You are not irresponsible. You are someone who made normal decisions in a system that is structurally designed to keep people in exactly this position. And understanding that fact doesn't make it any easier to get out of it. Level 2. $0 to $5,000 net worth. You're 29 and you've climbed out of the negative. Barely, but genuinely. Your net worth is $2,700. A thin cushion made up of a slightly more funded checking account, a starter emergency fund you built over 18 months by cutting every non-essential expense you could identify, and the same car, now with 110,000 miles. The debts are mostly gone. You paid off the credit cards first because you read that was the right move, and it was. The student loans are on an income-based repayment plan that feels manageable, but also feels like it'll last until you're 47. The monkey on your back isn't gone. It's just lighter. What changes at this level is something subtle but significant. You stop making purely defensive decisions and start making the occasional mildly optimistic one. You open a Roth IRA and put $50 a month into it, which your coworker tells you is great and your brain tells you is nothing. Both are true simultaneously. You have $2,700 between you and complete financial catastrophe. You know the exact number because you've calculated what would happen if you lost your job. Based on your monthly expenses, you have approximately 6 weeks of runway before you're genuinely in trouble. This knowledge lives in you like a low-grade fever. You're not sick, but you're not well. Social life at this level requires a kind of quiet negotiation. When friends suggest restaurants, you mentally scan the menu online first to calculate whether you can order something real or whether you'll be the person who says, "I ate before I came," and nurses a $4 soda. When someone suggests a group trip, a long weekend somewhere, a concert, anything with plane tickets, there's a beat before you answer where you do the math. And the math usually says no, even though you say maybe. You're starting to understand that financial stress doesn't just affect your money. It affects your personality. You're less spontaneous, less generous, less likely to take a chance on something new, because new things cost money, and money is the one thing you can't afford to waste right now. You're becoming more careful in ways that protect you financially and cost you something harder to quantify. Level 3. $10,000 to $50,000 net worth. You're 33. Your net worth is $31,000. $14,000 in a 401k that your employer partially matched, $12,000 in a high-yield savings account that you think of as your real emergency fund, $8,000 in a brokerage account you opened during the pandemic when everyone was talking about stocks, and various small amounts scattered around that add up to the rest. For the first time in your adult life, you have a genuine buffer between yourself and disaster. If something goes wrong, the car, a medical bill, a gap in employment, you won't be immediately destroyed. You'll be stressed, you'll have to make hard decisions, but you won't be in free fall. This feeling is new, and it is remarkable. It feels like breathing with your full lungs for the first time. At this level, the financial anxiety doesn't disappear, but it changes character. It's no longer about survival. It's about optimization. You read personal finance content constantly. Blogs, subreddits, YouTube channels, podcasts on your commute. You have opinions about index funds versus ETFs, about whether to pay off your car loan early or invest the difference, about the backdoor Roth strategy. You know what expense ratios are. You track your net worth monthly in a spreadsheet and watch the number go up with a satisfaction that is disproportionate to the actual size of the number. The psychological shift at this level is the first real taste of what financial security actually feels like, and it is addictive in a way nobody warns you about. Once you've felt it, the idea of going back to zero is genuinely frightening. You become protective of this buffer in ways that occasionally tip into excessive caution. You turn down social opportunities that cost money not because you can't afford them, but because spending feels like dismantling something you worked hard to build. Your friends who are at lower levels think you have money. Your friends who are at higher levels politely do not comment on your finances. Level 4. $100,000 to $250,000 net worth. You're 38. Your net worth just crossed $100,000, a milestone that personal finance culture treats as significant, and that genuinely does feel significant, even though you understand intellectually that it's the starting line rather than the finish. The money is in several places. A 401k worth $67,000. A Roth IRA worth $22,000. A taxable brokerage account with $15,000. Some cash. You own a condo, or more precisely, you and your bank jointly own a condo. And after subtracting the remaining mortgage, your equity is about $31,000. You drive a 4-year-old car that you own outright. You have reached the level of financial stability that previous generations described as doing okay. By any historical or global standard, you are not just okay, you are exceptionally fortunate. But you live in a present-tense American context where $100,000 in net worth at 38 feels precarious rather than comfortable, because you've done the retirement math and you understand what it actually costs to stop working someday. And $100,000 is nowhere close to that number. The comparison problem begins in earnest at this level. You make enough money that you interact socially with people who have significantly more, and you are now close enough to their lifestyle to see it clearly without being able to participate fully. You go to the same restaurants occasionally. You're invited to the same events. But when they talk about renovating their house or buying a vacation property or the private school tuition rates in your city, you are listening to a conversation from a slightly different world. At $100,000 to $250,000, you have largely solved the problem of money causing immediate daily stress. You have not solved the problem of money. You have simply cleared the level that was about survival and arrived at the level that is about anxiety of a different, more abstract kind. Level 5. $500,000 net worth. You're 44. Your net worth is $480,000, which you round up to $500,000 in casual conversation, though you've never actually said that number out loud to anyone except your spouse and your financial advisor, a pleasant woman named Sandra, who sends quarterly reports and calls you on track. On track for what exactly varies depending on what you're comparing yourself to. By the standard of the bottom 80% of American households, you are wealthy. By the standard of the wealth management industry, which defines high net worth as starting at $1 million, you're not quite there yet. By the standard of your college roommate who sold his company 4 years ago, you are someone he quietly feels bad for without meaning to. $500,000 in net worth means you have choices. Not unlimited choices, but choices. You could take a sabbatical from work for a year without destroying your financial future. You could write a check to solve a significant problem, a family medical crisis, a major car issue, a home repair, without going into debt. You could decide to change careers and take a lower-paying job for a year or two without your life collapsing. These are not small things. The freedom to make choices without financial catastrophe as the immediate consequence is one of the most profound privileges that wealth provides. And at $500,000, you have begun to have it. Not fully, not comfortably, but genuinely. What also happens at this level is that your relationship with work changes. You're not working to survive anymore. You're working to maintain the lifestyle and continue building the number. This distinction sounds minor and isn't. When you work to survive, Any job that pays is a good job. When you work to optimize, you become much more attuned to whether you actually want to be where you are, doing what you're doing, for as many hours as you're doing it. The answer, more often than not, is complicated. Level 6. $1 million net worth. You crossed the line on a Tuesday morning in October. You opened the app, looked at the number, and the portfolio had grown enough overnight, combined with the equity in the house and the retirement accounts, that everything added up to $1,227. You took a screenshot. Then you made coffee and went to work. You are technically a millionaire. This means almost nothing and also changes everything about how you think about yourself in ways that are difficult to explain to people who haven't experienced it. It means almost nothing because $1 million in net worth in your mid-40s, once you subtract the illiquid equity in your home, means you have roughly $650,000 in investable assets. At a 4% withdrawal rate, the standard rule of thumb for sustainable retirement drawdown, that's $26,000 a year. You cannot retire on $26,000 a year. You cannot stop working. The number that felt enormous when you were 22 and imagining your future self is not, in practice, freedom. It changes everything, because the psychological effect of crossing into 7 figures is real and significant, regardless of whether the math justifies it. You feel different. You carry yourself slightly differently. You fill out forms differently. There is a quiet confidence that comes from knowing that even in a catastrophic scenario, job loss, divorce, major health crisis, you have a meaningful foundation. You are not invincible, but you are no longer fragile in the way you were. At $1 million, you enter a strange social middle zone. You're wealthy enough that you feel uncomfortable telling most people your net worth because the number carries a cultural weight that creates distance. But you're not wealthy enough to circulate naturally in spaces where the wealthy circulate. Private clubs, charitable galas, the kind of fundraising dinners where the suggested donation on the invitation is $10,000. You have arrived somewhere significant. You are not where you're going. Level 7. $5 million net worth. You're 52. Your net worth is $5.2 million, and your life looks, from the outside, like the conclusion of a success story. The house, the cars, the private school tuition that you pay without really thinking about it anymore, the vacations that are actually nice, not the carefully budgeted nice, but the choose where you want to go nice. And from the inside, it does feel like success. You've earned this. You know exactly how many hours you worked, how many chances you took, how many uncomfortable conversations you had, how many times you chose the hard thing over the easy one. The number in your account is not luck, or not entirely luck. It is the product of decisions made over decades, and recognizing that matters to you. At $5 million, financial decisions become a different kind of problem. You're not worried about whether you can afford things. You're worried about whether spending money on things is making your life better or just making it more expensive. These are not the same concern. You've watched friends at your level buy boats and beach houses and expensive cars and realize, sometimes quickly and sometimes slowly, that the things they bought didn't move the needle on their actual happiness in any measurable way. You've also begun to notice the thing that people further up the ladder have been trying to explain for years, which is that beyond a certain point, more money does not produce proportionally more happiness. It produces different problems, different opportunities, and a different kind of relationship with the world. But the basic texture of your daily experience, are you content? Are your relationships good? Do you find meaning in how you spend your time? These things are not substantially altered by whether you're worth $5 million or $8 million. The people who understand this enjoy their money. The people who don't spend the rest of their lives chasing a number that keeps moving. Level 8. $25 million net worth. You didn't cross this level gradually. You crossed it the day the acquisition closed. The company you'd spent 11 years building, the thing that cost you 2 relationships, several 100,000 miles of travel, and a relationship with stress that your therapist once described as genuinely concerning. The wire transfer arrived, and you sat in your car in a parking garage for 20 minutes because you didn't know what to do next. $25 million. The number that you'd imagined as a kind of destination turned out to be the beginning of an entirely different education about what money is and what it isn't. At $25 million, your life changes structurally. You hire a family office, a small team of professionals whose job is to manage your wealth, handle your tax planning, oversee your investments, and generally serve as the financial nervous system of your new economic life. This costs a significant amount of money every year. You pay more in annual wealth management fees than you used to earn in salary, and this fact is simultaneously jarring and completely unremarkable to the people around you at this level. You discover that extraordinary wealth doesn't simplify your life. It complicates it in new and more sophisticated ways. There are structures to establish and maintain: trusts, LLCs, holding companies, insurance policies that cover risks you'd never considered. There are tax strategies that require planning years in advance. There are decisions about philanthropy, about legacy, about how to transfer wealth without destroying your children's motivation to do anything themselves. People treat you differently. Not everyone, and not always overtly, but the shift is real. Certain conversations stop happening naturally. People are more careful around you. Old friends are occasionally weird in ways they don't notice, and you can't address without making it worse. You miss, sometimes intensely, the version of yourself who had nothing to protect. You are, by any measure, free. The freedom is real and enormous, and you are grateful for it every day. But freedom at this scale comes with a weight you didn't anticipate, the weight of decisions that matter, of influence you didn't ask for, of a responsibility to do something meaningful with a resource this size that sits in your chest like a quiet obligation. Level 9. $100 million net worth. You're a centimillionaire, which is a word that almost nobody uses because the category it describes is so rare that it doesn't have cultural language yet. There are approximately 25,000 people in the United States with a net worth over $100 million. The entire population of the country is 335 million. You are in a group so small it could fit in a mid-sized sports arena. At this level, the phrase "spending money" has become essentially meaningless as a category of concern. You can buy anything that is purchasable. Any car, any house, any vacation. Any experience that money can create access to, you can access. This sounds like paradise, and in certain moments it genuinely is. But it also creates a subtle problem that sounds like a complaint, but isn't. When everything is possible, nothing carries the weight of being earned. The meal you can order without thinking about the price tastes the same as the meal you carefully chose because it was a special occasion. The vacation you took because you could take any vacation feels less meaningful than the one you saved for 2 years. The hedonic baseline shifts and keeps shifting, and the mechanism that used to generate pleasure from normal experiences grows quieter. What fills the space is purpose. At $100 million, the most interesting people you know are not the ones focused on accumulating more. They're the ones who found something to build or fix or create that has nothing to do with their net worth and everything to do with what they care about. The ones who haven't found that are, without exception, less satisfied with their lives than people worth 100 times less. Your security detail has become a normal part of your life, and the normalization of that fact is itself strange. You have people whose job is to know where you are, assess who's around you, and maintain the kind of low-profile operational security that protects your family from the small but real risk that comes with being publicly wealthy. Your children have grown up understanding that certain things about their lives must remain private, not as a rule imposed on them, but as a reality of the world they were born into. What you know, with more certainty than you'd expect, is that the problems of a $100 million life are still human problems. Your relationships can fail. Your health can fail. Your children can struggle. The things that matter most to you are still the things that money cannot guarantee. Level 10. $1 billion. The first thing you notice is that you are rich dollars. The first thing you notice is that the number has become abstract. You don't think in billions the way you used to think in hundreds or thousands. The number is no longer a measurement of security or possibility. You passed both of those thresholds a long time ago. It is now a measure of something else: influence, responsibility, legacy, and a kind of power that most democratic societies were not designed to accommodate. You are 61. You built something from nothing, or from the modest head start of an upper-middle-class upbringing, a state university education, and the specific combination of timing, talent, obsession, and luck that produces billionaires in quantities just large enough to make other people believe it's replicable. It is not reliably replicable. This is something you know and don't say publicly, because the myth of the self-made billionaire is too useful to too many people, including people who work for you. At $1 billion, your decisions have external effects. When you move capital, industries respond. When you speak publicly about a topic, the topic changes. When your foundation funds a research direction or a policy initiative or an educational program, the program exists because you decided it should, and it stops existing if you decide otherwise. You have the kind of influence over public life that was once reserved for governments, and you exercise it without running for anything, without being accountable to any constituency, without any mechanism by which the people your decisions affect can push back. Some days you think about this carefully, and it troubles you. Most days you do not think about it at all, because there are calls to take and decisions to make, and the machinery of your life runs so continuously that reflection feels like a luxury you can't quite afford, which is the most absurd sentence imaginable from a man worth $1 billion. But that is the truth of it. Your marriage has lasted because your spouse is extraordinary, and because you made a decision early and renewed it deliberately several times to protect the relationship from the forces that routinely destroy marriages at this level. The isolation, the imbalance, the way that enormous wealth creates a subtle dynamic where one person has and the other person has adjacent to, and the difference is invisible until it's not. Your adult children love you and are also, in various ways, shaped by the particular pressures of growing up with your last name. They are capable and intelligent, and working through things in therapy that are genuinely specific to their situation. One of them has built something real and independent. One of them works in the family business and is very good at it, and still lives in the shadow you cast without meaning to. One of them is figuring it out. You watch all of this from a position of enormous love and limited ability to actually help, because the help you can offer is the kind that involves money, and money is not what any of them need. Late at night, when the city is quiet below the windows of your home in a building where you own 3 floors, you sometimes do what you'd never admit in an interview. You calculate what your life would look like if you'd stopped at $10 million. Or $5 million. If you'd taken the exit ramp earlier, spent the years differently, been present for things you missed, prioritized things you deprioritized. The calculation never resolves. You don't know if you would have been happier. You know that you would have been different. You know that the world would be different in some ways because of what you built, and you try to believe that those ways are mostly good. You know that the pursuit itself, the drive, the hunger, the need to build and grow and compound, gave you a life of extraordinary intensity and took from you things that don't have dollar values. You're not sure what the exchange rate is. After all this time, all these zeros, you are genuinely not sure. And that uncertainty, it turns out, is something that money cannot resolve. Not at any level, not at any number, not ever. If this video made you think about money differently, subscribe. We make these videos for people who want to understand the real mechanics of wealth and what it actually does to a life, not the fantasy version, the real one. Like this video, leave a comment about which level surprised you most, and we'll see you in the next one.